ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, we will be discussing the Yengolian Revolution in breakdown form. In this episode, we will be covering the following: the aftermath of the previous war leading up to the revolution, the cause of the revolution, along with the politics that leads up to the war. Without further ado, let's begin with the prologue of the Yengolian Revolution. After the end of the Tasmanian invasion, the Allied nations that were trying to prevent the nation of Tasmania to build another empire within the continent of Tenyo have failed due to Tasmania inflicting flanking strategies resulting with many soldiers to be killed and the precision of sabotaging Allied supplies throughout the entire war with the help of their ally Tanland, which would cripple them to the point where they couldn't continue and resulted the Allied forces to quickly surrender, resulting with Tasmania to be the victor of the war, and would build its new empire by occupying the following nations: Condust and Yengolia, along with Tanland, of course. Once Tasmania had occupational rights to these nations, they would begin to do what they had done with the nations of Tanland and Condust, which were to enforce Tasmanian culture and laws within their countries, which they would also try to inflict on Yengolia. But Yengolia, being a new nation, didn't like that they would be a colonized puppet for a tyrant. But to prevent their country from being officially conquered, they decided to follow the rules and allow the Tasmanians to do what they want until their moment of liberation would come. By the way, if you remember from my MIPR court registration video, it would be technically illegal for Tasmania to own a new nation based on the law in term number 2, which states, quote, "Don't invade or conquer new nations that have existed or have been recently discovered," end quote. But since Tasmania did win the war and they had the option to accept whatever or make any terms they wanted, they chose to own the new nation of Yengolia, which meant that the court couldn't do anything about it unless there were signs of cruelty to the population or harsh treatment to the population, which they would soon see. After Tasmania accepted their victory and ownership of the nations under their rule for the past 2 months, things between them and the two older nations, Condus and Tanland, have been well since they have been used to their customs before. But as for the Yengolian people, they were not happy with Tasmania. Tasmania, ever since occupying Yengolia, have been raiding on their supplies to sell under their currency for trade with other nations, along with raising their taxes on food, medical, and produce just for them to collect money for themselves and would never return it to the people. This would anger the people of Yengolia to the point where they felt like they needed to form a protest in a peaceful way to get fair compensation with the Tasmanian government. So on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, that's exactly what they did. They would march towards the Capitol building in the city of Ulaanbaatar, where the Tasmanian general who was in charge of the Tasmanian soldiers, General Tojo Mirotama, will be working on transports for more soldiers to come to Yengolia to secure the colony for good. The building was guarded by newly enlisted soldiers who had registered for the position, and when they saw the crowd of the Yengolians approaching them, they felt uneasy. One soldier by the name of Private Nagi Yuso would enter the building to reach Muratoma's office to warn him about the danger outside, saying, quote, "The Yengolians are demanding to see you and are conducting a protest about the situation. What should we do?" asked Nagi. Murotama would tell Nagi in response to this, that he would do his best to calm the crowd down by coming outside and try to negotiate with them into giving him the opportunity to fix the problems that were inflicted. Nagi would go back to return to his post, and as for Murotama, he would soon follow. Murotama did calm the crowd by telling them that he could change their problems, but he would have to contact his leader, which would be no other than Emperor Hirohito himself. Murotama would... Sorry guys, we're going to go ahead and... Anyways, sorry guys, wanted to cut it so that we can continue on. Now, here we go. Murotama would return to his office and would call the emperor, letting him know about the situation. And Emperor Hirohito would reply to Muratama, saying, quote, "I will grant the notion to change the laws inflicted in their country if you could disband the protest. If they are able to accept this motion, then changes should be made." End quote. Muratama would later give the news to the people, but when they heard it, they were outraged and angered at Muratama, thinking that he lied about changing their situation, which will result in Yengolian civilians to charge at the guards trying to get to Muratama. The guards would do their best to repel the violent attackers, and Muratama would manage to enter the building safely, but with his guards risking their lives to protect him made him concerned for their safety. So Muratama would call the head captain of the Tanzania military police department to deal with the situation, and during his call with the captain, he would say the following words, quote, "If bloodshed is what they want, bloodshed is what they'll get. Do whatever it takes to get rid of them," end quote. Within a few minutes, the military police would arrive with a bunch of soldiers along with armored vehicles mounted with machine guns. The guards stood their ground throughout the whole ordeal before the police had arrived. The captain of the police would discharge a warning shot and would tell the protesters to disperse. A few of the protesters who heard the shot left, but a bunch still remained, which prompted the captain to do a 10-second countdown for the rest of the protesters to disperse before he would give the motion for his men to open fire. But suddenly, at the 5-second mark, the protesters would hear the officers load their rifles and machine guns, which many were starting to change their minds about staying, but one protester chose to pick a fight. And right at the 3-second mark, this protester would draw his pistol and shoot at two officers, which the military police, upon seeing this, opened fire among the crowd immediately. In the end of this little event, 10 Yengolians were killed and 4 were arrested. But the 4 that were arrested were sentenced to prison without a fair trial, except for the ones that Tanzania would hold. The news would break about this particular event, and it would catch the eyes of the MIPR court. Tanzania was granted the opportunity to justify their actions towards Yengolia, but when all was said, and due to lack of evidence, Tanzania was deemed guilty of massacring innocent civilians, along with rigging the independent court systems, and the charge of thievery within the country. The Yengolians who witnessed this event and survived Tanzania's cruelty will begin to form their army and reunite with their old allies to lead a new war of liberation once and for all. Okay guys, so we have reached the end of this episode. I am glad that you guys were able to listen to this episode and learn a little bit. So to also answer some of the questions, who was the person that fired the shot? We don't know. I never really gave a name for the person who did fire the shot, which leaves the mystery of who did fire the shot and everything. But even though, despite the gunshot being heard and seen by the Tanzanian police and the government of Tanzania having no evidence of a pistol at the scene, which they failed to clean up casually, or during the scene when the military police were opening fire into the crowd, someone may have picked up the gun to make it look like Tanzania is guilty of just massacring innocent civilians. So basically, you can look at this as a setup for the Tanzanians to be at fault. But as of to the rest of the European nations, that's what they would see, and that's what Tanzania will be deemed as: a tyrannical, murdering empire. As for the war, this would be the leading factor into the war. All the cruelty, all the lying, stealing, manipulating would spark a anger within the Yengolian people, resulting them to revolt against Tanzania. And also the older nations that were once defeated by Tanzania saw an opportunity to defeat Tanzania once and for all. And that is where we're going to continue on with the next episode, which will be the conflict. And the conflict meaning the wars and battles. So without further ado, I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Also, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and please watch my Resident Evil Requiem gameplay videos, because I know there's a bunch of you that like Resident Evil Requiem, and have seen it before, but please share, give my videos a chance. Thank you.